PowerPoint presentation on affirming potential. Affirming potential. So the first thing we want to do is if you're going to affirm your potential, you got to be a biophiliac and not a necrophiliac. That means you have to love life instead of loving death. Now, of course, ultimately, some kind of acceptance between life and death and the kind of interacting and alternating cycles where one thing changes into another. Flowers decompose, become garbage. Garbage becomes a new fertilizer for growing new flowers. And so how there's many, many images where you can see life coming out of death and would imply that there's no ultimate finality. Everything gets recycled. How that plays a part to whether or not our own individuality has any lasting continuity after the body is no longer being animated. That's open to speculation, isn't it? Nonetheless, if you want to affirm your potential, one of the things we say is you have to understand what it is to be like a willow tree. This is called self-actualization. A willow tree planted by the river has almost 100% chance of self-actualization because it's in the environment where the little seed that it has within itself, right, the oak is in the acorn, it can become what it fully potentially has inside itself to become. That which is within can blossom, but if it was planted in a desert, it would be a much tougher time for it to get what nutrients it needed from such an arid environment in order to bloom in its own way. So that's important to find out where you belong. Then we say your vibe is your tribe. You know, working together with other people, it works if you works. There's no magic except what you bring to it, the truth of your life. And initially, of course, we talk about not only positive goals and how to take strategic steps towards a greater ability to ensure that what we do will make it happen and churn out results, as opposed to things that inhibit us, enslave us, make us feel we're less than and therefore not worthy. And sometimes airing those views with other people, what I call also chasing your own shadow, is very helpful. But in the end, a lot of our potential has to do with how we can contribute, how we can offer ourselves the gifts that we have. And each person has something that makes them special in the world to contribute. Now, here's a biblical idea that they call the works of mercy. It's not just something that intellectually you feel, oh, poor people, isn't that terrible for them? The corporeal works of mercy, you can actually feed the hungry, give drink to the thirsty, clothe the naked, shelter the homeless, visit the sick, visit the imprisoned, bury the dead. You know, they said that in Abraham's time, he had his tent open in all four directions so that any passerby wouldn't be missed. They could come in and show them hospitality to the stranger. Then the seven spiritual works of mercy, right, is you can counsel the doubtful, instruct the ignorant, admonish the sinner, comfort the afflicted, forgive offenses, bear wrongs patiently, and pray for the living and the dead. So that might afflict the comfortable part of you because it puts you up against the wall. So what are you doing? You show me. Act. Now, the Wizard of Oz, if you remember, turned out to be a sham. Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. But he did do one thing. He affirmed the potential of all the people who came to him. And he gave the Cowardly Lion a medal for his heroism. He gave the Scarecrow a brain for his intelligence. He gave him a diploma. And then he gave the Tin Man a heart so he could feel. So Dorothy just had to click her heels to go back home. So he gave her the insight, and then that was the catalyst, and she had to go do it herself. So this teacher, you'll see at the end of this presentation, somebody who sees you and who, with a non-judgmental eye, can recognize and therefore give you the blessing. All right, Deepak, what does he have to say? Research has shown that the best way to be happy is to make each day happy. Yeah, I mean, you know, Sai Baba says, begin the day with love, continue the day with love, end the day with love. Seems so easy, right? So that healing process moves from the placebo effect. I always tell this story. It's like you go to a doctor, you expect the doctor to check you out, and if something is wrong, they're going to give you a prescription or something, right? That is the tangible thing. And then they'll say, well, take it for 2 weeks and come back and see me again. So now you're under the orders of the doctor, you're following the procedure, and then there's this relationship that you develop with them Call me next Tuesday, let me know how things are. See me in 3 weeks and we'll give you a checkup again and we'll change course if we need to. And so after the relationship comes, now comes the personal empowerment. And these are the things you have to do at home for yourself. And then you can see me in 6 months. So in the same way, if you came to a yoga class and the teacher wouldn't say to you as soon as you walk in, you don't need to learn anything from me. Just live more of the spiritual truth you already know. You say, what a charlatan this person is. But instead, they give you in the form of asana, breathing practices, a deep relaxation, or meditation. That's the placebo. That's the tangible thing that you think is going to help you. And then they say, well, next week, you sign up for 4 classes. It's an 8-class series. And they hook you, and then the relationship, the rapport develops between you and the teacher. You really look forward to seeing them. As you'll see at the end of this, the importance of affirming your potential by being seen. It's called darshan in yoga. You visibly have to allow someone to look into you. Into me, you see. Intimacy with your teacher. And as a result of that, they can acknowledge you or bless you. And then they try to get you to go on your own, right? Their job is done when you start practicing at home and you don't need to go to them anymore. You may want to go to them. You may end up apprenticing with them or even becoming a teacher yourself, but it's not based from that same emptiness, like something was missing. And that's why you had to find it. And if you find it in your teacher, now the arc plating happens and they tell you, no, you got it. And then you have to take responsibility for making every day one that's happy. Now, yoga teaches us to cure what need not be endured and to endure what cannot be cured. That's a really interesting idea. Don't try to pretend it's a panacea for everything, but it'll help you get along with the ones that you can't do anything about or are just too chronic and you have to learn to live with it. But a lot of other things you don't have to live with, and yoga can help you move through that. Now, the key, of course, to all of this is not just saying it. It's a practice. You have to substantiate the claims for yourself, and that's why it says in the Hatha Yoga Pradipika, success comes to one who practices, not to one who practices not. So I can't say it in any other fuller way. Don't let go of anything else in your life, but don't forget to hit the mat. Now, the 2 yoga wings, Abhyasa and Vairagya, and here's the quote from Bhagavan Satya Sai Baba, concentrating one's thoughts solely on the self will lead to happiness or bliss. Drawing in the thoughts, restraining them and preventing them from going outwards called Vairagya, the dispassion. Fixing them in the self is sadhana or Abhyasa, that's practice. Concentrating on the heart is the same thing as concentrating on the self. The heart is another name for the self. So even when we're doing yoga asanas, the idea of each pose is the potential to experience the core of your own being. So when you practice them, you're focused on that. That is the abhyasa, the long, uninterrupted practice with reverential devotion over time. But then the dispassion, the giving up of worldliness, and not trying to reinforce somebody is going to collect something in the future, but emptying out completely and concentrating on the self or consciousness. What is consciousness in and of itself? That's what takes you back to your own inner layer. Unless I have enough personal power to keep commitments in my daily life, I will be unable to wield magic power. To work magic, I need a basic belief in my ability to do things and cause things to happen. That belief is generated and sustained by my daily actions. Yeah, like Don Juan says to Carlos, even though I gave you the secret, the key of the universe, but you didn't have any personal power, you couldn't do anything with it. So this is where it gets back to affirming your own potential, which means believing in yourself, which means having confidence in what you do. And part of that comes from having gotten the blessing from your teacher, who you project upon them a person who doesn't lie and tells you the truth. And if they say you got it, you can keep denying that you got it out of some kind of personal sense of I'm less than. But the truth is, are you willing to listen to them? They wouldn't say you got it if you didn't have it. So it puts the responsibility back where it belongs, on you. Now, seeking perfection in human affairs is a perfect way to enjoy them. Only 1 or 2 things in a relationship are not that great, but 8 or 10 things are really, really good about the relationship. Discover the whole thing. Perfection is a yardstick with which to beat yourself, so say the Gestalt psychologists. So no one's going to measure up if you hold them under such scrutiny. Right. And you have to learn to compromise a little bit. It's really important to do that because that way you can help affirm other people's potential. There's some quote, maybe from Goethe, somebody fact check this, that if you see a person as they are, you make them worse than they are. But if you see them how they could be, you make them what they should be. So have a kindly eye when you look on other people. Now, staying positive doesn't mean you have to be happy all the time. It means that even on hard days, you know there are better ones coming. See your perspective. Happy doesn't mean walking around with a shit-eating grin on your face all the time and completely not paying attention to any situations around you in the world, the difficulties that other people may be having if they're not as well blessed by good karma as you might be. But all the time doesn't exist anyway. Sunny days, rainy days, different seasons of life, sometimes up, sometimes down. But through it all is the basic connection that you have to this deeper part of yourself. You could call it the spirit. And if you let spirit mediate everything in your life, then there's more days where you are happy or content and satisfied because you're not seeking something other than just the fullness of being itself. Now, remind ourselves once again about the importance of shadow work, whether it's in the asana that makes you feel weakness or stiffness in the body, misalignment. You got to keep working at it. But when it comes to mental and emotional things, we sometimes have a verboten sign, a forbidden sign, and we pass by that room. We don't want to go. We tiptoe by it quickly. But at some point, this is what we call reclamation work. And reclamation work has to do with the part of you that said, don't open that file again. But then, if you don't look at your wounds and you don't honor your wounds, you don't honor what you've been through, you end up living a provisional life. You just make do. And then that creative potential doesn't have a chance to get out. And so, when you go back into those things that you don't want to see, it engenders karuna or compassion for yourself, and then even more compassion for other people. Because if you're already listening to this lecture, you're way ahead in terms of the part of you that wants to find some wise insight to be able to guide your life and maybe help other people along the way if it's possible, even though sometimes we know we can't change anybody but ourselves. We have enough time, enough difficulty in changing ourselves. But when you see even the Dalai Lama has kept a certain maintenance of lightness among the diaspora, never talked bad about the Chinese. He understands what they call in Jewish Lashon Hara, the evil tongue, the slander, what it can do. So being realistic, we can't erase it. It's like writing on a piece of paper and then you try to erase it. There's still a little line there indicating something was chiseled in. And with time, it washes away. Like they say, a finger in water, you pass it through. As soon as you move the finger out of the way, the water gets smooth again. Finger in wet sand, it digs an impression deep in. But after a while, with the coming and going of the waves, the sand washes smooth again. And then chiseled in a rock, even if the pain is really, really deep over time, the washing away relaxes it and makes it smooth again. So another way of saying it is, we can't fix anybody's brokenness, but we can bless it. We can see a way in which it may have served them in the overall perspective of their life's development and what they can extract from it. As my teacher used to say, called a satmika yana. You have to take the essence of the experience out of it and not just be lost in the experience itself. And then if you can do that, another reminder, it's your teachers who in some way will bless your brokenness. That's why I always love to tell the story in the Jewish tradition. When you go to visit your rabbi on Shabbos, you're not supposed to drive or use a vehicle, so you have to walk on foot. And when you get into the town where the rabbi lives, and you pass the sign that says this is Far Rockaway, there's a certain relief that you get. So the light problems just fall away from you, and now you can celebrate the coming of the bride. But other people, they have deeper problems with that. And it's not until they step through the doorway and touch the mezuzah on the door, and now they're in the rabbi's house, that they feel, my deeper problems, they've really kind of just let it go because now I'm here. But then there's some people, their problems are soul deep. And just being in the town or even entering into the rabbi's house won't work. But the moment you see the rabbi's face, all of a sudden, everything falls away. And now, because eternity is in love with the productions of time, you're in that sacred space, and nothing else matters except being here and surrendering fully to whatever it is that's happening in the moment, because now you're covered and you're connected. And I hope that you find your way to have your potential affirmed. And I'd certainly be glad to do it, but I hope you find something in addition to me.